Oh, hello, beautiful people of the internet. My name is Ryan. I mean Tingle. I recently played 160-ish hours worth of Breath of the Wild in a blind fashion, meaning I knew nothing about the game. I spent 160 hours puzzling through how the game works, what the mechanics are, what the story, and I made my way all the way to the end, and I beat Ganon. And now that I've done that, and I have learned a lot about how the game works, my lovely chat and these lovely people who watched me on YouTube have suggested that I react to a speed run of Breath of the Wild. I chose this, and by I chose, I mean some lovely friends of the channel picked this video for me to watch by Tomato Anus. So shout out to Tomato Anus. I'll have a link to this video down below in the description. There's an intro, there's an ad. We're going to skip that. Then we're going to watch a speedrun reaction. This is a couple years old, this video. It's the any percent speedrun. The speed run was technically by Raisin Earn, and the commentary is provided by Tomato Anus. We picked a commentary one and a slightly older version because I believe that this speed run itself is kind of legendary, even though the time is now faster a couple years later. Goodbye, Tony. Thanks for being here. His mind is about to be blown. I really look forward to it. I can't wait to find out what speedrunners do to break this game. So let's watch.
Right away, the game is played with Canadian French text and German voice because that's the fastest combination of languages when playing on an NTSC Switch.
I don't know why my little hotbar is here at the bottom, and I'm just going to have to ignore it because I can't make it go away. Okay, I can't make it go away, and I can't change the volume. So that's weird.
Which, since the text box is dismissed slightly faster in some spots and the overall length of the spoken lines is shorter. So, the run officially starts when we gain control of Zelda, and we get off to a blazing start by entering into some text box dialogue when we pick up our Sheikah sleeve.
Okay, so first things first, there are different languages. This is a thing I'm familiar with from Hollow Knight. Different languages for text load fast or are faster overall. So you do that. Did he say Zelda? Yeah, wait a second.
In some spots, and the overall length of the spoken lines is shorter. So, the run officially starts when we gain control of Zelda, and we get off to a blazing start by entering into some text box dialogue when we pick up our Sheikah Slate, which is pretty much an in-game iPad for menuing and map usage. After a whopping 35 seconds of cutscenes and dialogues, we're going to continue our blistering start by mashing to click on the right analog stick to bring up the camera/scope feature on the iPad to get a little cutscene that plays when you open it up for the first time. This is because if we don't get this little cutscene out of the way immediately, then it'll impede the first skip of the run, Shrine of Resurrection skip.
First skip is the Shrine of Resurrection.
Normally, when you exit the Shrine of Resurrection where we start the game, there's a lengthy cutscene of Nintendo patting themselves on the back and showing off how beautiful Hyrule.
Yes, the most lovely cutscene in the game. There's a, you walk out, the camera follows behind Link, you see Hyrule before you. I think that's what he's talking about.
Rule is. Instead, by running up the wall and wedging ourselves up as high as we can go, and then mashing on the right analog stick again to enter the scope feature, if we're positioned correctly, then we just drop through the wall and are out of bounds, now being able to skip the intended exit of the Shrine of Resurrection.
Okay, so something's very weird there. So something's definitely around there. Where is the, how do I get the settings? I can't hit any of my buttons down here. I don't know what I did to my, my hotbar. But, oh well. Lock all toolbar, turn toolbar off? I don't know. There should be a settings button here to up the quality. But...
and the exit cutscene. So now that we're out of bounds in the shrine, we can climb up a nearby rock face where at the top, Raisin will walk Zelda to a specific spot while crouched and then cancel the crouch to stand up where we'll get pushed back in bounds. Raisin is then going to run around the Great Plateau, freezing his tush off, and collect an axe, shield, bow, and arrows. While Raisin does all this, it's a good time to explain how we'll be entering the first shrine because it'll take a hot second, but make a mental note for the time being that we're able to sprint while recovering stamina during this stretch thanks to something called Whistle Sprint.
We just learned about this 2 seconds ago. Excellent. So, whistle sprinting... You don't lose stamina when you do it.
Remember that term, I'll explain it later. So as for the shrine, normally in this tutorial area of Hyrule...
You go get the axe.
rule called the Great Plateau, you have to activate a big tower and then complete 4 shrines. I don't know about you, but big towers sound slow, so we're going to skip the tower and head straight to a shrine. The exterior of shrines are set up so that you have to interact with the slab with your iPad, and then a gate will unlock and you can ride an elevator down. Typically, the 4 shrines in the Great Plateau aren't accessible until you activate the big tower, at which point the slabs on the exteriors of the shrines will become interactable.
So how do you
but
get
you
around
can
this?
actually enter the shrines early, skipping the big tower and slab interaction by performing what's called a shield clip. So if you jump onto a sloped angle like the side of a shrine and shield surf briefly, then the game remembers the angle the shield had in that moment while you were surfing. This angle gets stored internally in the game somewhere. Then, if you jump and mount your shield in air, and then unequip the shield during this animation, then
What?
Zelda will briefly become skewed.
You have to do what? Hold up. Let me hear that one more time.
Surf briefly, then the game remembers
So you shield surf. The game remembers your angle.
the angle the shield had in that moment while you were surfing. This angle gets stored internally in the game somewhere. Then, if you jump and mount your shield
Jump?
in air, and then unequip the shield during this animation, then Zelda will briefly become skewed with the angle that was stored internally from us shield surfing briefly on a slope. This angle is wonky enough where if we position ourselves in an exact spot next to a shrine and then perform another jump with a shield mount to activate the skew, the combination of our positioning and skew will cause Zelda to clip through the wall. I know that was a lot, but let's go through the steps as they happen here right now. First, Rosin approaches the shrine and shield surfs on its sloped side to set a skew angle internally.
The shield?
Rosin then
Okay.
positions Zelda in a precise spot and does a shield mount to activate the skew, clipping us through the wall. Inside the wall,
Oh, buddy, what the hell?
Rosin crouched, walked up to, and interacted with the elevator to enter the shrine
Whoa, you skip the shell of the shrine. Gets skipped.
precise spot and does a shield mount to activate the skew, clipping us through the wall.
Whoa.
Inside the wall, Rosin crouched, walked up to, and interacted with the elevator to enter the shrine proper, skipping having to go to the big tower. So inside this first shrine, once the elevator reaches the bottom, we'll interact with the slab on a pedestal, which gives us our first iPad app, Stasis. This is of
first
course
app.
installed the traditional way with a stalactite in the shrine discharging its gamer goo onto our iPad.
So you have to go through all 4 shrines on the Great Plateau? I think he may
Now
have
that our
already
moist
said that.
meter is filled, let's explain stasis. Stasis lets us freeze and suspend objects in time for up to 10 seconds unless we manually unfreeze them earlier, and also lets us hit objects to build up directional energy on them that all gets unleashed once the object leaves stasis. Changing topics, when we approach the last boulder in the shrine, rather than interact with it, we're going to circumvent it by performing a shield jump. Zelda is a tubular dude who likes to with it.
I think what's happening here is they are breaking the stasis at the exact right
We're
moment.
going to circumvent it by performing.
I think that was a breaking of stasis. I can't tell if they manually broke it. I just learned you can manually break stasis right now, like yesterday. Can't leave the plateau without the paraglider, of course. So you have to get the paraglider, which means 4 things. Okay.
Performing a shield jump. Zelda is a
There's a death plane around the plateau if you don't have a paraglider. So everything else will instant kill you. Interesting. Chad, if you know any answers and or trivia about the speedrun or speedrunning Zelda in general, hit me with them. We're in learning
tubular
mode.
dude who likes to tear up the slopes and
Feel
shred
free
some
to add
powder
them.
by surfing with his shield, and when we go to crush it, Zelda performs a gnarly flip in air to mount his board. And by pressing the mount button at the right time, you get a bit of extra distance and bounce to your jump, which acts as a sort of double jump like right here to cross the gap. As the kids say, most excellent.
Oh, whoa!
So is Rosin
Are we allowed to co-explain? Yes, you are.
jump like right here to cross the gap.
That's incredible.
As the kids say, most excellent. So as
Most
Rosin
excellent.
talks to the monk to receive the spirit orb and complete the first of 4 shrines in the Great Plateau, he's going to delay on when he skips the monk's final dialogue. What you think you'd do is mash to skip through the dialogue to exit out of the monk's dialogue as quickly as possible, but instead, Rosin is going to wait until the final lines from the monk's dialogue fade away. For some reason, if you skip the
is the
dialogue
loading
after the
screen thing.
lines fade away, then the load to exit the shrine is much faster, and
This is the
overall
loading
you
screen
gain
thing.
control of Zelda outside of the shrine much sooner than if you had skipped the line immediately and it had to wait in a longer loading screen. When we load back outside, Hyrule Santa is going to slide into our DMs and talk to us a bit about some stuff, so while Rosin is held up in that conversation, let's talk briefly about two things that are about to break the speedrun wide open, the first of which being a stasis launch. So after telling Santa what's on his Christmas list, Rosin is going to run to a nearby boulder and use stasis on it to freeze it in place.
I know the
Rosin will
boulder.
spin attack to hit the boulder 4 times to build up a bunch of energy in the boulder that will be unleashed after stasis ends.
You jump
and
on
then
it?
Rosin will shoot the boulder once with an arrow to correct the direction of the energy to be pointing pretty much straight up the nearby cliff. Rosin is then going to do something that I think is better for you to just witness rather than hear me explain, but it's worth noting in advance that the boulder we're going to use isn't just a boulder, it's a rock. And the pioneers used to ride these babies for miles.
Okay, so you hit it 4 times. You shoot it at an angle that changes the direction. You get on it. It's going to fucking launch you in the air. Oh my god,
So now
that's
on top
cool.
of the cliff, we're going to go to a nearby bokoblin camp and we're going to perform something called a bullet time bounce. If we perform a jump and mount our shield, and then while falling, aim our bow and arrows to slow down time, and then land on an enemy's head or back with our shield and cancel our aiming and slowing down of time, then we get an enormous launch and we can control where we land by unequipping our shield, causing us to fall straight down, and we cancel our fall damage by going to throw a weapon as we're about to land, and unequipping an item just before
My head hurts, but that might be the morph suit that I've worn for the last 4 hours, but my head hurts.
Zelda lets go of the weapon. Rosin then set up a new skew
Oh my
and
God.
straight down, and we cancel our fall damage by going to throw a weapon as we're about to land, and unequipping an item just before Zelda lets go of the weapon. Rosin then set up a new skew angle by shield surfing on a slope near the entrance of this shrine, and then shield mounts midair to perform another shield clip to enter the second shrine of the Great Plateau.
Okay.
This shield clip is a variation called an extended shield clip, which is the same as the shield clip I explained earlier, but is used for thicker walls like the actual shrine doors, and it's basically clipping twice instead of just once. The beginning of this shrine is pretty straightforward, with Rosin using the newly acquired Cryonis ability to make ice blocks to reach a ledge and
I have waited for this reaction for 150 episodes, JoJo says.
raise a gate, so while Rosin does that, let's digress to whistle sprinting. Whistle sprinting is essentially a way to have infinite stamina and sprint non-stop. This is done by holding down the whistle button to call your horse and then mashing the sprint button. While you do regain stamina while whistle sprinting, you technically move slightly slower when compared to normal sprinting, so
The thing about speed running like this, that involves like glitching through walls and stuff, is that some people will always look at it and be like, yeah, but you're not playing the game. You're not playing the game. And some people will just be disappointed by it. Those people, totally fine. Don't watch a video like this. People like me, I'm just like, oh my God. It's the interesting part of where like bugs are games are like just like compilations of bugs and so many actual features and like, you know, limits and barriers and whatever, and finding the place where the bug and the barrier or like the feature and the barrier line up, you know, in the fastest way possible is so appealing.
alternate between normal sprinting to move as fast as possible and then whistle sprinting to regain stamina while still maintaining near sprint speeds. While whistle sprinting mitigates a lot of stamina worries, we still have to time out when we whistle sprint versus sprint normally to make sure we have enough stamina to climb at certain parts. Getting back to the shrine, here Rosin is going to perform what's called Cryo Skip, which is a precisely timed shield surf jump off of a rising cryo block, which saves about 7 seconds. Which is a
That was
precisely
so
timed
sexy. Whoa.
shield surf jump off of a rising cryo block, which saves about
Ooh.
7 seconds. Righteous.
Anyone else getting annoyed by the jokes here? I was warned by the moderators that the jokes here might be a little not everyone's taste. I'm mostly not even hearing it.
Up top here is where we'll obtain our second spirit orb, and again, notice how Rosin won't skip to end the monk's dialogue until the monk's dialogue box fades away, because again, for some reason, if you skip the dialogue after the lines fade away, then the load to exit the shrine is much faster, and
Sure.
overall, you gain control of Zelda outside of the shrine much sooner than if you had skipped the line immediately and had to wait
Also, who am I to judge another creator? I have streamed for 4 hours today in a tingle suit.
no longer loading screen. So when we load back to outside of the shrine, Rosin is going to perform a bullet time bounce that is the most difficult one in the run. It requires Zelda to both be in a rather exact spot, in addition to facing a specific angle, which Rosin sets up by aiming with his bow after shooting an arrow to lure over some bokoblins. After
Okay,
swinging his
that
axe a couple
I
times,
understand. So the bullet time bounce is where you enter bullet time, shield down the back of an enemy, basically. So the goal here, bring the bokoblins over, then bullet time bounce.
To keep Zelda still while he holds up on the analog stick, Rosin leaps off and performs the bullet time bounce to launch ourselves to the third shrine of the plateau. While midair, Rosin looks up to the sky. This is because the game freezes up to load occasionally because we're traveling so fast, and looking up at the sky makes the game load slightly faster because of not having to render as many objects on screen. Because we traveled across the plateau so quickly and land so close to the shrine entrance doesn't have time to fully load in, so we can just walk straight on into the elevator.
I love that we have had 3 shrines and 3 different solutions to getting inside of the shrines.
And enter the shrine without
2 of them were very similar, but that one's fucking great.
having to perform a shield clip. So this shrine is where we get the magnesis ability, which lets us use our iPad to grab objects made of metal and move them around and manipulate their orientation. There aren't really any tricks to this shrine other than being quick with our magnesis use to keep moving quickly, in addition to us being the awkward speedrunners we are and trying to avoid eye contact with an enemy before performing a shield jump across a gap that normally we'd need to use magnesis to cross. This is a good time to talk about the downside to whistle sprinting, which is that Zelda makes all this noise with his whistling and just won't shut up. This is sometimes an issue because Zelda's puckered lips can alert nearby enemies and wildlife to our position. Luckily, when we need Zelda to go back to his typically mute self, we can perform what's called throw sprinting. This tech is performed by mashing the throw button and the sprint button at the same time and has the same effect as whistle sprinting. Speedrunners just prefer to use whistle sprinting because it's more consistent to perform. Throw sprinting isn't really used in this run, but it's more common in other categories and is worth the mention since we had a moment. Once we make it to the end of the shrine, we're going to talk to the monk, and we're again going to wait to skip the monk.
I'm triggered by all the Zeldas. I understand. I apologize. I can't mute it. You don't have to watch it as well. I also am annoyed. I know, but just ignore the name. Just
dialogue until the final dialogue box disappears, but at this point, the repetition in this commentary about this time save must be nauseating, so I'm sorry for repeating myself
we stand a self-aware king.
About how the load is faster if we wait to skip the dialogue until after the dialogue disappears. So after the shortened loading screen that's caused by skipping the final dialogue after the lines,
I don't really think it's a big deal, sure, but it's also like the sound of people chewing. Some people don't think it's a big deal, and some people are driven truly insane by it.
Fade away, which saves time compared to if we skip the line immediately. We'll be back outside the shrine where we're going to perform another stasis launch like the one we did earlier with the rock, but this time we're going to use a nearby metal cube that is this game's equivalent to Portal's companion cube, because it's going to never leave our side for the rest of the run, and you can mark my words on that. After using stasis on our buddy and loading it up with energy and directing the energy with a well-placed arrow, Rosin hops on the cube to ride it to a nearby bokoblin camp.
We're going to ride this cube around the rest of the game, aren't we?
Here we're going to perform another
the cube's dead.
Bullet time bounce, and this one is incredibly frustrating because it relies on the AI of the bokoblins cooperating, which as you can tell is a fickle situation with one of them having yeeted a barrel at us. When we eventually land from our bounce, we're going to have to perform another shield clip to enter the next shrine because unfortunately the shrine not being
how do you aim
loaded
that so
just
well?
Doesn't happen with this shrine in the bounce we just performed, but fortunately it is the final shield clip of the run. So this shield clip requires Rosin to perform what's essentially 2 separate shield clips, where the first clip brings us to inside of the wall of the shrine where we still have an invisible wall blocking us that we have to
There's 2 layers to it.
Shield clip through as well, which has pretty much the same exact execution, iPad zooming and all. So this shrine is where we get our blue balls that explode after enough time passes, and it's by far my favorite of the shrines in this speedrun. After receiving and accepting discharge from the long hanging thing, our iPad will be powered up and have the blue balls ability, and Rosin will position himself in a super precise spot. Rosin will then perform the trick that makes this shrine so great, which is a tech called a wind bomb. So once Rosin gets his position and angle set up, he's going to jump and place one of our blue balls on the ground while jumping, and then while in mid-air, switch to our
back up.
Wind bomb. So once Rosin gets his position and angle set up, he's going to jump and place one of our blue balls on the ground while jumping, and then while in mid-air, switch to our blue cube and drop that. Then switch back to the blue ball and blow it up, which causes the blue cube.
I just learned this part yesterday, I believe, which is that if you have both bombs in proximity, blowing up one will send the other one flying. Is he going to ride the other ball?
Cube to be launched into us, which in turn sends Zelda flying.
Yep.
This is a wind bomb, and in layman's terms, we blow something up which launches an object into us, and that object sends us flying. It's like a combo shot in pool or billiards. After Zelda snaps
fucking Christ.
his spine in half by landing on a ledge, we miraculously get up, and Rosin will then casually heave one of our balls up to destroy some objects with cracks in them. This clears the path for us to climb on up and interact with another monk, where we will skip through its lines, but then wait a moment to skip through the end of the dialogue until after the final dialogue box disappears. This is because, for some reason, if you skip the dialogue after the lines fade away, then the load to exit the shrine
God damn it, dude.
than if you had skipped the line immediately and had to wait in a longer loading screen. Once we get back outside, Santa is going to float on down to us and talk for a bit before revealing himself to be the ghost of Christmas past.
I find it hilarious. I find it funny that you find it hilarious.
Ghost Santa eventually vamooses. Rosin is going to position Zelda in a pretty exact location on the steps up to the shrine and will perform another wind bomb to send Zelda flying through the air and cartwheeling on the ground. While we wait on that, real quick, I hope you're all doing well. I know that at times it can be hard to see the positives in life, but please remember that no feeling is final. How you feel now does not define you, nor does it define the rest of your existence. There is a tomorrow, you will be here for it, and we'll all be happy that you're here with us. If things are tough, don't be afraid to reach out and talk to those close to you. Back to the run.
I love that message with pinwheeling, ragdolling Link in the background.
This launch places us perfectly next to a friendly looking tree, and because it's so friendly looking, Rosin is going to prepare it for a stasis launch. And
to stasis launch the tree? What won't we stasis launch?
And give it a nice warm hug. After wrapping our arms around the shaft, we're going to ride this tree all the way to the roof of the Temple of Time, where we'll dismount from our log grip challenge and get lectured by Ghost Santa about taking his daughter to the prom. This log launch worked out to our advantage because it's not only fast, but it also lets us avoid running past a certain bokoblin on our way to the temple. This is good because after this stern talking to, we're going to perform a bullet time bounce on said bokoblin, and if we had ran up to the temple, then we may have drawn the attention of the bokoblin and it may have chased us, which would cause for it to not be in its spawn location after talking to Santa, which would mean that we wouldn't be able to perform the bounce on it. But because we did ride the log, like many of us do on Saturday nights, the bokoblin won't have moved from its spawn location, meaning we can consistently bounce on it. So while Rosin bounces on the bokoblin and then flies across the map, I'm going to explain a couple things real quick. When Santa stopped talking, he gave us his paraglider, which is the only way to leave the Great Plateau. You may have been asking why we didn't just launch ourselves off of the plateau earlier and canceled our fall damage, and that's because until you have the paraglider, the plateau is surrounded by triggers that neck Zelda and you have to start over. So we need the paraglider to leave the plateau, and the only way to get the paraglider is to do all the
God, we're zooming. So when you have the speed like this,
shrines, as we've already done throughout the run.
Are we just going to the castle?
As I mentioned at the start of the video, this game lacks a lot of structure, which means you can do whatever you want in whatever order, so we can just go straight to the end boss once we leave
We're going to the castle.
The Great Plateau, skipping all the stuff that the game suggests you typically do, like assemble your own strike force to help take down Calamity Ganon. This Phileas Fogg flight path we're on is bringing us straight to the endgame area where we'll do some quick prep and then do some brawling.
So let's do some quick thinking. Quick prep. I wonder what you grab. There are ancient arrows around here. I wonder if you grab those. You have a half-broken shield, the woodcutter's axe, and a boko bow. And also you haven't done the divine beast, so what we learned is that that's going to mean there are much harder Ganon. There's probably a glitched way to beat Ganon, though, and or some version of that. This man just skipped 155 episodes? Yes.
Something that
We also have a heart and a heart and 3/4.
Neglected to mention at the beginning of the run is that this run does allow the use of amiibo. If you're unfamiliar with amiibo, they're collectible figurines you purchase in real life that you can scan with your Wii U or Switch controller for in-game rewards. Rosin has a Toon Zelda amiibo which he activates right here, and this amiibo spawns a tornado in a riverbed far away in a distant land that is not accessible in the game, and this tornado picks up all the fishies in the river along with a couple treasure chests and introduces them to the water cycle where they fly in the jet stream over great distances before dropping right before Zelda. After picking up some snacks for later and putting the fish in his pockets, Razin now begins the big
Nice.
preparation for the final boss fights of the run
Okay.
because there are multiple bosses we have to beat. The first thing that
Okay.
Razin does is whistle sprint down a hallway and jump so one of our blue balls will drop and then explodes the blue ball to reveal a secret room that has a royal guard sword in it. On our
Cool.
way out of the room, Razin pulls
Now we got the sword we can use to win.
out one of our blue cubes and walks to a doorway real quick, at which point two things happen. One is that the cutscene that usually plays once you first arrive at the castle starts to play because enough of the castle is finally loaded in for that to happen, but also Razin walking into the doorway puts him in range of an enemy called a Lizalfos that was in camouflage, and entering its range causes it to leave camo and try to attack us. After gently placing down the blue cube and booking it down the hallway, we enter the armory where Razin's whistling alerts a moblin below who we jump down to and
Wait, the blue cube didn't explode. What's it for?
sneak strike to take it out in one hit. We
Cool.
then yoink the Royal Guard's bow that was resting
Cool.
against the wall, as well as the Moblin's Royal Guard's claymore, and then strategically light an arrow on fire before igniting a wooden barrel. After destroying all the crates to collect a bunch of arrows and food, the flaming barrel ignites a bunch of leaves, and we can then pull out our paraglider to ride the updraft from the fire up to the second floor where we
Yo.
were before we dropped down to attack the Moblin.
That's a cool little set of moves there.
Back upstairs, we're going to round the corner to see Russell Van Pelt over here messing around with the cube we dropped earlier,
Yeah.
trying to figure out
Yeah.
what it is, but
What's
this is where we
this?
RP as Alan Parrish and bonk them from behind to get its tri-boomerang. We're now more loaded with food than a preschooler's pockets, and unfortunately it's all raw, but fortunately Razin is descended from a long line of
What about the-
Michelin star
We're about to cook all. Oh my god, we're about to cook all of this food.
chefs and knows how to cook up some good grub. After entering the dining hall, Razin tosses a glowing square, which two moblins take to like moths to a
That was the sneak jumping that I just learned about today, right there.
After entering the dining hall, Razin tosses a glowing square, which two moblins take to like moths to a flame. Razin then sneak strikes one, causing the cube to roll a bit, which the second moblin is completely enamored with, being completely oblivious to its friend's demise, while we light an arrow on fire to light up a cooking pot, followed by brewing up a fish and mushroom skewer, which gives us bonus attack damage for 3 minutes and 50 seconds after eating.
Okay.
We then do a cool guys don't look at explosions by detonating our moth friend's toy, and then use magnesis to reach the top shelf to get down a royal bow to add to our collection.
Whoa.
We've now got a pretty loaded arsenal, so after exiting the dining hall, Razin positions and angles himself in a specific location and direction on a battlement and performs a wind bomb to launch Zelda up to the upper level of the castle. As
One
we're
heart
landing from our
and a
glide,
dream.
we deep throat our fish and mushroom skewer to top off our health and kick off the bonus attack timer and perform a second wind bomb, which is sadly the final one in the run. When we
Aw.
land, we'll be entering the final
Okay.
boss rush of the game. Before triggering the fight, Razin will position Zelda in a specific location and then perform a series of exact movements to
Orders Principo. Don't
Get
know what
Zelda
that
to
means.
be-
Does that mean Sanctum?
be right on the edge of triggering the boss rush.
Are we on
There he
Sanctum?
aims an arrow at a specific spot and lets loose, which moves Zelda slightly forward, triggering the fight. There's an intro cutscene to the fight against the final boss, the Wind Blight, but it isn't a pre-rendered cutscene. It's actually happening in real time in the game world, and the arrow we just shot just so happens to freeze in place during the cutscene.
Whoa. So we shoot an arrow, which in the process begins the cutscene. The arrow mid-flight at the end of the cutscene will hit.
That arrow is positioned perfectly so that it's constantly colliding with the Wind Blight during the cutscene, dealing
No, it's better. It's not going to hit at the end. It is colliding during the thing.
a ton of damage, so when the cutscene ends, enough
A arrow is just sitting there rattling around in the Wind Blight's eye.
damage has been done to immediately finish off the Wind Blight, effectively skipping the fight in a skip called Wind Blight Skip.
Holy shit.
This leads to the second Blight fight, which is against the Water
How does someone discover
Blight.
that?
Right away, Razin will get a few quick pop shots in with our Stone Smasher, with a jump thrown in there to cancel a spin attack. Razin then runs to between the Blight's body and arm and spin attacks to have our Smasher hit not only the body but also the arm of the Blight, so we get 2 hits in on each swing. This quickly lowers the Blight's health to half,
It
which
is
brings
interesting. I
us
haven't
to
said
the
this
second.
yet, but you fight Wind Blight. You fight the 4 versions that you would have fought in a Divine Beast if you... Interesting.
phase where the Blight is going to dance on the ceiling like Lionel Richie.
You have to fight all the Ganons. That's interesting. And then a full health Ganon? Or no? I understand now why he's saying boss rush. It really is. It's 4 and then a full... Is Ganon also then full health? Whereas he's half health for if you do it. Interesting.
After the Water Blight leaves its miniature Blitzball arena form at the start of Phase 2, Razin will snipe it in its eyes twice with some arrows, which will cause the Blight to drop from the ceiling. We're then going to pirouette with our Royal Claymore and try to nestle ourselves amongst its gangly limbs to get as many hits in as possible before the blight comes to and mounts on the ceiling again. After another couple shots to the eye, Rosin performs an insanely acrobatic jumping slash with our Stone Smasher and
Hey, I also do those.
finishes off the Water Blight to bring us to the third of 4 blights, the Fire Blight.
The bitrate is really the bitrate of this video is really struggling, but that's what you get when you react to a reaction, which was originally a video. So I'm trying to actually add some sort of value here and comment on this and etc. But reacting to a reaction is always weird.
Is a hulking lad, but has the weakness of that it takes damage whenever we hit it. What a stupid line. Rosin does some spin attacks with his Stone Smasher, which stuns the Fire Blight, and once it ragdolls to the floor, we switch to the Royal Guard Sword and flail.
Look at the small amount of. Look at this really cool moment right here.
Away, which
look at the stamina.
stuns the Fire
We come down to
Blight.
a very thin razor. I think if that goes to 0, then we have to do the work of regaining our stamina, but it doesn't.
And once it ragdolls to the floor, we switch to the Royal Guard Sword and flail away at the Blight's armpit to bring it down to below half
Like, the stamina management is insane.
health and initiate phase 2. Phase 2 of the Fire Blight hits different because the Fire Blight likes to cosplay as a Hoover vacuum. It's going to do big suck, so by placing one of our blue balls on
This
the
is where the boomerang matters?
ground, the Blight will suck it up and get blasted to the ground, while Rosin will hit it a couple times with our Tri-Boomerang, and then switch to our Royal Claymore and spin attack the Blight's nape
Damn.
like it's a Titan.
I
As
thought
the
we were
Blight
actually going
stands
to use the boomerang function.
up, Rosin deals the finishing blow, bringing us to the 4th and final Blight before Ganon, the Thunder Blight. The Thunder Blight's first phase is pretty straightforward, with us pulling a Thanos on its Captain America shield, and then spin attacking it a couple times, it pancaking, and then spin attacking it again before it takes flight, where we snipe its eye to lower its health to half, initiating phase 2.
Cool. May I ask what you're wearing? Exclamation tingle.
So because we just broke its Vibranium shield, it of course now has its own Mjolnir that it really thinks will turn the tide of the battle. It's too bad that with just one Tri-Boomerang throw we break its shield again, causing it to be vulnerable to another arrow shot which drops it like a bag of bricks. Rosin flails away with the Tri-Boomerang and strong attacks the moment the Blight regenerates its shield so that we destroy it again, stunning the Blight and leaving it open to some devastating spin attacks with our Claymore. This finishes off the 4th of the 4 Horsemen and brings us to our fight against Calamity Ganon, looking like Pennywise from the end of It. So right away, Rosin gets off 2 quick arrow shots to the dome while Ganon winds up for a horizontal swinging attack. Rosin then jumps.
I feel like he's not completely drawing the bow back. Is he only partially drawing the bow back?
To dodge the horizontal attack during the window that allows for Flurry Rush to be activated, letting us get a bunch of hits in to start the fight. We then retreat to the edge of the arena while whistle sprinting to pick up a Royal Broadsword as well as some explosive arrows. Rosin will swap to the explosive arrows right away and just unload on Ganon's face with them before repositioning slightly to pick up another Royal Claymore. After a couple more explosive
I love this bitrate. I can see so much.
Arrows to bring us down to 2 remaining, Rosin swaps to his 2 ice arrows to use those real quick, and then to some standard arrows to whittle down its health some more. We want to hold on to the 2 remaining explosive arrows for something that'll happen in a moment, but for now Rosin continues to chip away with arrows, and then we'll switch focus to deal some damage via another Flurry Rush.
Okay.
After the Flurry Rush, Ganon is going to be shocked at how Zelda is actually Neo, and Ganon will retreat to climb up a wall, but this is where one of our remaining explosive arrows comes in handy to knock down the Spoder. This transitions us to phase 2, where Ganon is now made out of lava because of course he is. Right away, Rosin waits for Ganon to fire a laser, which Rosin parries with his shield to deflect it back, stunning Ganon for a moment and letting us get a couple hits in on his head.
For sure, that's how I parry.
Before Beyblading amongst Ganon's legs to deal a bunch of hits super quickly. The strong slam attack at the end of the spin stuns Ganon again.
So it's hard to see, but he's spin attacking both legs and body there, I'm pretty sure. Or at least 2 legs at a time.
So we then rinse and repeat after swapping to our Claymore. Rosin will repeat this process over and over until Ganon's health is almost empty, at which point we yeet our weapon to finish off the fight against Calamity Ganon. That isn't the end of the run though, because there's one more boss fight after this one against Dark Beast Ganon, but real quick while we wait on this fight to end and that one to start, thank you to all of you who support the channel on Patreon. It's super kind of you to do and also unnecessary, and it means a lot. It's the best way to support the channel financially if you're interested in doing so, and also gives you perks like access to videos early and a patron role in my Discord server. Again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the content.
Crouch, canceling parries.
When we're brought into the true final fight of the game against Dark Beast Ganon, right away we're given the Bow of Light as well as a horse. At the start of this fight, we hear that princess chick talking, and the fight doesn't actually start until the line where she tells us that she believes in our victory, which is a short line compared to the others. Rosin spends the time before this line just waiting for it, and positions himself on the right side of Ganon's body. Or, well, I guess on Ganon's left. Rosin then tells Seabiscuit to giddy up right before the line starts so that we're in position on Ganon's right when the fight begins, because that's where the first 3 targets spawn that we have.
When you crouch after a parry, the slow motion stops. Oh, to save time, he is crouching right after parry so that the slow motion
have to hit with arrows. When the targets eventually spawn, we're going to immediately shoot at the front one and then jump off our steed to enter bullet time to be able to take out the other 2 targets in rapid succession.
Bullet time right off the horse.
Also, this gives us more time to aim at the rear target, which is helpful because that one is a bit more finicky than the others. After then chasing down Bojack to mount him again, Rosin moseys his way around the front of Ganon, but we're in no rush at this moment because we're really just waiting on Ganon to make his move.
Okay, Bo, I'm gonna have to leave. The minute this speedrun is done in 2 minutes, I'm gonna have to end stream. I'll be fine though. I'll be fine, hopefully. As long as I can get out of this suit, I'll be fine.
And slowly turn and do a dramatic laser to the sky, after which the next 3 targets will spawn.
We'll watch the animation speedrun thing another time, most likely. Sorry we can't get to everything today. I've had a lot of fun today, though. Thank you guys for hanging out for stream today.
Once Ganon finishes his laser light show, Rosin again leaps off of American Pharaoh and enters bullet time to take out the 3 targets, lowering Ganon's health to around 25%. After mounting Boxer for the final time, Rosin rides around the front of Ganon to bait him into performing a powerful laser attack, but it's not very hard to dodge because we just keep on a truckin' to the other side of Ganon and then underneath him to wait for the next target to spawn on his navel. It's worth mentioning that this Dark Beast Ganon fight as a whole is a cakewalk compared to the rest of the run, and there aren't many places where you can lose time. You mostly just have to be sure to hit the targets quickly and not get stomped on by any of Ganon's feet when you're riding under him. Speaking of under him, now that we're beneath Ganon, Rosin's timing is impeccable, hitting the target pretty much the moment it spawns, and then begins riding out in front of Ganon. We're getting ready for the final blow of the fight and the game, where after dismounting Mr. Ed, Rosin is going to ride an updraft and float there while he waits for the axe wound on top of Ganon to open up for him to unload into. The run officially ends when Rosin's shot hits the target and the explosion animation begins.
This is where I fired 1,000,000 arrows. There it is.
If you made it to the end of this video, I'd like to say thank you on behalf of both myself and Rosin. This run holds a special place in speedrunning, and I'm glad that I got to work with Rosin on showing it to you guys. Rosin was awesome to work with on this video, and he's a super skilled runner, so please be sure to check out his socials.
Tomato Anus for the commentary. That's mind-boggling. The number of movement things are crazy. The bullet time like bouncing, the wind bombing, the stasis, whatever it's called. Those are all crazy. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Apparently, new runs have many different things as well. Maybe I'll watch another one of those at a different time. Speedrunning is very cool. I love spending 160 hours on a game and then watching someone beat it in like 25 minutes. It's really fun. It's really fun. World record right now is 3 minutes shorter than this. Will you try some of the moves? Are you kidding me? I'm going to kill myself with wind bombing. There's no way I won't. I'll probably still try it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll have links below to Tomato Anus's video in case you want to find it yourself. And yeah, otherwise I need to run. But thanks so much for watching.